What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more J-drama score, and I'm back to talk about a show that I haven't yet reacted to any music from. I'm very excited about that. So many shows to go through, so many soundtracks that I've yet to talk about, so very excited to keep working on this playlist again, even knowing that it will be a lesser trafficked playlist. But shout out to those of you who are here. We're going to listen to a tune from a show called Ando Lloyd, which is a name, and the subtitle is AI Knows Love? Question mark. It's funny. It is fundamentally, and as you might see by sort of the character implications and sort of the physical postures on the front, it is fundamentally a love story. Now, it's a love story that features androids from the future, including killer ones as well as helpful ones. It features teleportation devices. It features like all sorts of fantastical sci-fi elements. I shouldn't say fantastical. It's not fantasy. It is 100% sci-fi. It takes place in the present day, but it involves essentially a professor who, this is not the professor. This is Ando Lloyd. More on that in a second. But it's played by the same actor who plays the professor. We get the professor at the very beginning of the show. He's married. This is his wife. And they are a very happy couple, and he's a theoretical physicist, so he's working on like really advanced science. And he eventually finds out that in the future, through his studies, and he's able to use some, physical process that's not yet fully understood to like essentially detect like radio signals from the future and so on. And he figures out that there's been this like, dystopian series of events, and the future is sort of like ruled by ruthless killer androids, and so he's gonna try to stop it. But before he can do that, he's killed in the like first like half an hour of the first episode. He's killed brutally in front of his wife. And obviously this is traumatic and so on, and she's sort of trying to figure out, why would my husband, who's just a scientist, be targeted? Well, it turns out someone who looks very much like him suddenly comes back into her life, scaring the heck out of her. But it's revealed that he is an android with the AI program that is created based on the sort of knowledge and memories of her husband, who her husband realized he was in danger, and he essentially wrote an AI program and put all of like his memories and experiences into it, sent it into the future to sympathetic people in the future who were trying to resist this sort of android dystopia. They sent back with a sort of like another like digital kind of AI helper, Ando Lloyd, or ARX. Is it ARX 213? What is it? ARX, like Roman numeral 2-13, and that's like the serial number design. And I believe he was actually, it's like the Terminator story, in that like he was originally created to be one of these like awful like killer androids, but they switched out the AI program running it and put in the one written by the doctor before he died. Bottom line, this android comes back from the future to protect her, because she is also a danger from the forces who don't want anything to change over time. And it turns out that someone very close to the late professor is also involved in the conspiracy. So it's like a crazy show sci-fi wise, although very compelling and interesting. And I can swing with a show. Like, I'm willing to go with a show on its own terms. Like, I don't enter a show like, okay, this is a little too crazy, whatever. It's like, okay, it's like a big sci-fi show with a lot of moving parts. Tell me more. I'm curious to see. But as the show plays out, it becomes increasingly clear it's like it's a love story. Like, she's recollecting times with her actual husband, and she's sort of seeing her husband in the android because he looks just like her husband, but he's very cold and like, no, I'm here to protect you. I'm like, I have no emotion. Like, I'm not here for myself, whatever. Well, over the course of the show, he keeps doing things that are seemingly like harsh and severe, but you keep seeing how much he genuinely wants to protect her and care for her. And essentially, like, she falls in love with Ando Lloyd over the course of the show, and then at the very end, he has to like basically go sacrifice himself to create a possibility whereby they can like reverse the gears of time and bring her husband back. So she ends up like falling for what at first is this kind of like, weird, very like cold-faced facsimile of her husband, but she comes to see the humanity in him over the course of the show. And there are moments where he wants to reciprocate, like he begins feeling for her, even though he's, at the beginning he's very frustrated with like how naive she is and how much danger she's in and so on. So that's the subtitle of the show. AI knows love? ? Maybe by the end of the show, this AI, despite not, AI's not being considered to be capable of truly emotional cognition. Perhaps, that AI proves it wrong. So bottom line, we see here on the back again, all the visuals suggest this is, despite all the sci-fi trappings, very much a love story. So let's get to it. And the name of this tune, the second tune on the soundtrack, which is by Kanno Yugo, and those of you who watched any of the 4 Mozu soundtrack reactions I've done will know that Kanno Yugo did the soundtrack to Mozu, and again, it's another example of a J-drama composer making scores that are very different from each other in very different shows. So shout out to Kanno Yugo, but this is his tune, the theme, called Ando Lloyd, AI Knows Love, ? From the show of the same name, and it's, I don't have it queued up, I do apologize, it should take me just 1 second, but okay, here we go, Ando Lloyd, AI Knows Love, the track from the soundtrack of the show of the same name. Soaring, triumphant. Starts that melody in the piano, still there, but now extending it to the strings. Unflinchingly brave nature of Ando Lloyd is conveyed. And again, if you can feel emotion, then that means maybe fear is not beyond the pale of reason. Keeps going from like kind of tighter and more tender to bigger and more expansive. It's sort of like a balance between those two scales. On the edges. Love it. Again, shout out to Kanno Yugo. This is a very different soundtrack than his soundtrack for Mozu, which is much like more wicked, like razor edged, hard, like gritty, unfeeling. Not unfeeling. There are tracks in that are actually quite emotional, especially the Mozu strings, which I did already react to. Check that out if you didn't see it. But yeah, this is a very different soundtrack, more sort of like sweet and tender and emotionally rich, not without tracks that have sort of like some grit and energy. Again, there are some scenes where androids fight each other. But yeah, bottom line, it's a more sort of emotionally complicated and tender soundtrack, where again the Mozu soundtrack is very stark and severe, which sort of fits the subject matter there. But yeah, do let me know what you think of this tune. Shout out to Kanno Yugo and the show Ando Lloyd once again. Thank you for all you that have watched the J-Drama reactions. Like I said, I really do appreciate you. Big ups to Ron. But yeah, let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.